guys, welcome back to my channel. So I just recently got this clock and I have yet to make anything with it, and I've been really excited and I've got this idea, so we're gonna go with it. And I'm gonna do a whole lot of stressing, a whole lot of questioning my life's choices in this video, but you don't have to. You can sit back and, well, you can make the same questions, I'm sure, or ask the same questions, I'm sure, that I will be asking myself later on, and we're just gonna see what we can do. So I'm still kind of in my beachy, oceany type thing, and I seen Michelle from Glitz and Glitter do this recently on a clock, so I want to try it. I've yet to perfect a wave of any sort, so why not go with UV resin and try one, right? I mean, I can't do one normally, but we're gonna try it this way. So what I'm gonna do first is I am going to take a little bit of my ISTOYO UV resin, and I'm just going to kind of put it where I think I want the wave to go. Maybe, hopefully it'll work. And I'm going to take a little bit more of the UV resin that I've already mixed with some of Let's Resin's Ocean White pigment paste. And I'm going to get a straw and I'm going to blow. And we'll see if I can make it work. Because I don't know. I don't know. And we're gonna try it now. I did kind of like lift it up and look and see, and I mean, I guess it looks okay. It's not the waviest of waves, but it's in a clock mold, and I'm not a wave maker, so there's that. So now I want to put one on the other side. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm going to spread out the resin kind of sort of in the area that I am hoping it'll go. And we're just going to take a little line of this white pigment paste again, mixed it with my resin, and kind of put it just kissing the edge of that clear resin. Take the straw, blow, see if I like the way that it kind of works out. Now, in this one in particular, I feel like there's just not enough white in it for me. Maybe I over blew it, or I don't know. So we're gonna add a little bit more, and we're just gonna continue to blow and see what happens, and maybe it'll work. All right. So I'm still not happy with it. So I'm still fiddling with it, but it's fine. It'll be fine. Now I'm gonna throw it under my Let's Resin Dual UV light for 5 minutes. Okay. Now this is the part where I gotta kind of play around a little bit. So my vision is obviously an underwater thing, right? But what I want to do first is I want to put some shells down on the bottom. So in order to not have an issue with them moving around, not that they should, because I am going to put sand on top of them, but I also don't want to have to worry about bubbles or any of that nonsense or losing my shells. So what I'm going to do is, after I kind of sort of pick and choose the shells that I want to incorporate, I'm going to pour a little bit of UV resin, because in my head, I kind of have the clock laid out in sections on what I want where, right? So I know that the bottom, because there's all the little line things that go across the clock, I know towards the feet of the clock, that's where I want my shells to go. I also know that there's a certain point that I don't want my sand to go above, so I need my shells to be kind of below that. So I'm just going to kind of put the UV resin, heat it up, get rid of bubbles, kind of make it a little bit thinner and more able to move a little bit easier for me. Spread it out in the area that I want my shells. And then I'm just going to go in and place the shells upside down, right? Because we're working upside down. So I want to make sure that the part of the shell I want to see is on the bottom, and just kind of place them where I want to. Now, I do end up going in because I have a handful of shells picked out, and I don't want to like make it too many, but I want them in there. Like I want them to be noticeable and just looking all cool and pretty and whatnot. So I don't know. And I do have, like, I've got these little turtle stickers that I got from Temu, and this iridescent kind of papery type stuff that I think would look kind of cool for the water if I can make it work right. And that's going to be like the focal point of it, but I want these shells to look beautiful too. So I decided that I'm going to go in with some abalone shells that I have in a couple different colors. I've got this kind of like they call it a gray, it's gray mist, gray green, something like that. And I'm going to add a few of these in because they kind of go with that, like the color of the shells, like kind of browns and stuff like that, but there's like a tint of green gray to it. And then I'm gonna go in with these other green kind of abalone shells that I have. And then I have some black, no, it's blue ink, I think it's called. Yeah, the blue ink tea ones. And we're gonna go in with those too, just to add just a pop of color to this, but not something that's going to look ridiculous. Because if you can see on the right hand side of the screen, all those tiny little jars, those are all the different kind of colors that I have. And I don't want like the reds and the purples that I've got or the black that I have, because I feel like that's just too much in the direction that I don't want to go for the colors of this piece. So we're going to kind of stick with this kind of bluey ink one, the green, and this other like gray, turquoise gray, that's what it's called. And we're going to kind of go with it. Now, what I am going to do before I pop this under my UV lamp is I am going over top with just a thin little bit of resin, UV resin, just to kind of make sure that they're going to be all stuck in there. And also, I did, you know how the shells have like the holes in them? I did cover each one of those little holes so that when I pour my resin later on, I don't have to worry about air bubbles. Now, it's probably not going to matter because I'm doing sand, but just in case, I figure I got to stick it under the light anyway, so why not? Now, I did for this part, I mixed up about 30 milliliters of Let's Resin's 4-hour demold resin, and I'm slowly adding it to the amount of sand that I think that I'm going to use. I want it super pasty, super thick, and I don't want to see any resin when I lift up my stick. I want it straight sand. I'm just kind of using this as a binding agent for my sand on the bottom of this. I am going in spots where there isn't just the clear resin from like the UV resin that I put down, just adding it. I don't know why. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to make a difference, but just in case, I felt like I should do it, so I did it. You know, I mean, we all do crazy stuff. You know, it's fine. It's fine. Now I'm going over top and I'm just kind of glooping this sand in here. Now, remember, I said that there's a certain area, a certain line that I don't want to go above with my sand. So I'm keeping it towards the bottom, underneath that bottom kind of line there. That's as much sand as I want. I don't want it to go any higher than that. But I do want it to completely cover my shells. I don't want to see them from behind. Like, I want a nice thick layer. So as I'm working on this, and as resin does, it starts to kind of move and go towards the center. Well, that's not where I want it to be. I want it to be just on the bottom here. Like, I don't want it to move. It's got to stay. So I'm going to keep kind of piling it on. And then once it starts to the point where it's kind of so much in there, and I can see that it's going above the line where I want it to go, I'm just gonna elevate it. So I'm gonna get some coaster molds that I'm not using right now, and I'm just gonna kind of prop it up so that it's gonna stay below that point where I want it to stay. I'm gonna finish adding in the rest of this because why waste it? And then we're just gonna let it kind of do its thing. Now, I'm not in any hurry right now. Like, I use the fast cure because it's a super thick resin, and this way that it has less time to move and stuff that it can potentially screw up and or anything stupid happen. So I figured this is the way to go. It's super thick and whatever, and I don't have to worry about it because it's going to cure really fast. Now I am taking my silicone tool and just kind of moving it down where I need it, propping it up a little higher because it's still kind of going above that line that I want. We're going to squish it down to the point that I want it, and that's it. Now, I only used probably about 15 milliliters of the 30 that I made, and that's fine. I'll just use that in something else. But I just want to make sure that it's just on the bottom, just where I want it, and I don't have any hiccups, right? Those will all come in a little bit here. Okay, now that is nice and cured. Now, what I'm going to do is I need to do my first clear layer. So I'm just, again, I'm going with the 4-hour demold resin from Let's Resin, mixing that up, adding a little bit of the Rolio Pearl White so that I have a little bit of sparkle to this, and we're going to pour it in. Okay, so here is where I start screwing up and not thinking things through completely. What I should have done and what I did are two totally different things. What I should have done was pour this clear layer and pour it thin and let it get hard. Just let it cure, do its thing, whatever, and then move on. But no, no. Me and my intelligent self decided that I'm going to pour it, but I'm going to start adding in the things that I shouldn't be adding in yet. There is a particular place that I need these two stickers to go so that I don't lose them in the sand or in the waves because of how, I did it. I want them to be clearly visible. I also I just they just need to go in a certain area. And the area is kind of squished in between that circle and the side of the mold. Like to the point where the sticker is kind of rolling up on both sides, and that's fine. That's how I want it to be. I just should not have done it this way because I decided to put it in clear resin like this, and guess what happens? It moves. And it moved several times, and this was a big pain in the ass because I didn't wait. So, anyway, to put them in, I just smoothed some of the resin on top of them to try and eliminate the possibility of bubbles. Yeah. And now it's time to kind of get them in here. Now, see, this is where it would have been easier if I had let it cure first, because then I could put this in here and I could tack it down in place with a little bit of UV resin. But see, what I'm doing is I have this and the sticker is coming up along the side. Along the side where some of those rivets and stuff are from the decorations on the clock, and I'm not filling this up the whole way. So I'm pushing this resin all around, pushing the clear resin up on the side of it, but there's no guarantee that I'm not going to get huge freaking craters in this because of how I'm doing this. So I would recommend not doing it this way, pouring yourself a clear layer, inserting your sticker how you need it to be, and then doing another coat of resin on top of it. This was just bad all the way around. And I fool with these damn stickers forever and a year, and it doesn't even matter in the end because they still moved. Like I went back after I finally am done, getting these in here and everything. I ended up going back probably a good 2 hours or so. Yeah, maybe about, no, maybe about an hour ish. I went back to kind of just check in on it, and they were kissing each other in the middle. Like that's not how they were supposed to be. So I had to go in there and mess with the resin and 4-hour demold. So we're talking an hour in after I'm done playing with this. So that's not counting the time that it's been mixed up and that I'm fooling with it. So probably a good hour and a half later, and hour 45 maybe even, and I'm going in there fooling with it, and it's just it it was not cool. Anyway, so now I'm trying to get this one kind of where I want it, and every time I get it there it just kind of smushes itself back because it's not liking the tension between like how I'm trying to shove it in, kind of almost U-shaped between that circle and the edge of the mold. Anyway, So then, and I had the bright idea. I'm just gonna pour the rest of this resin on here, and it'll be fine and great and everything. And I start thinking at this point, and here's comes my next mistake. That, oh, what I should do is, since I have these little shiny iridescent paper things, like I'm gonna put them in the back, but do you see that they're not prepped? They're not cut. They're not anything right now. As this was After this, off camera, I do go and spray some Mod Podge on them just to seal them because I don't know what they're going to do. But they're not cut. They're not in the right shape. They're not anything. And I have the idea that I'm going to go in when this gets tacky, and I'm going to put this paper down and everything's going to be fine, right? Right? Everything's going to be okay? No, everything is not okay. That was dumb decision number 2. All right. So this is now a good 2.5 hours in, and you can see me trying to get these stickers to move because they've done moved out of the spot that I wanted them in yet again. But I'm worried that if I fool with them too much, I'm going to get huge air pockets. So here, yeah, this is where I start to really, really screw up. Now, in theory, it's a great idea, right? You put the paper down while it's still tacky, like not super thin. I honestly, even at this, I should have waited longer, but I'm me and I didn't. Or it would have been okay, but I, in my infinite wisdom, reheated my resin up with my heat gun so that I could move the stickers, which liquefied it a little bit more, which you see, do you see? Which was that was dumb decision number 3, because now my resin is not just tacky, it is more liquidy in some areas. And I go to kind of pat it ever so carefully down, and ever so carefully is not ever so carefully. It's a little bit harder than I intend. And instead of it just lying flat, now I've got divots in it. So we're gonna see how many dumb decisions I can make in this video. All right. So of course I can't cut, and now I'm rushing because I have to make dinner soon, and I just happened to come back, and it just happened to be in this spot. So I'm like, I'm gonna record now. I'm gonna do this. So I'm rushing. I'm trying to cut this, which I should have had this part done before I ever even attempted to pour any resin at all, so that my cuts would be decent. These are crap cuts. Like, it looks like a kindergartner cut them. And my I'm getting resin everywhere. The paper's sticking to the scissors. Like, I can't get it off. My hands are super sticky because I keep touching the damn resin with them. And it's just this whole big mess. And then I've got paper that's kind of like, I don't even know what it's going to happen with it once I pour another layer on. Is it going to float? Is it going to, who knows? Who knows? But let's just keep fooling with it, right? Oh, let's heat it up some more, cuz that's a good thing to do. Great decision on your part. Oh, yeah. And we're going to move it and pull it, cuz what you really want to do when resin is at this state is disturb it. Especially when it was looking pretty good and you didn't have any bubbles in there, but now what? Like, how many dumb decisions can one person possibly make in one video? It's ridiculous. But we're going to keep on keeping on because that's what we do, right? So now I'm attempting to cut the top part. And in theory, what was supposed to happen is it was supposed to go from the darker blue into the lighter blue. Now, again, not a whole lot of forethought on this idea, but my thought process here is, oh, well, we'll just shove it in, push it in, get it to stick, and all will be fine in the world. It'll be easy to cut off the excess afterwards. No, no, it's not. It's not. And then there's the whole, well, you're shoving it in and it's coming up the sides, which in theory, if it's done the right way, not this, but if it's done the right way, could be Super cool. However, I did not do it the right way. It would have to be like a whole thought out process, not just let's shove in some paper and cross our fingers and hope for the best and have it kind of like, because the clock, it's kind of like rounded on the front to go into the sides. And that would look really pretty having it. That's kind of what I was going for with um, the turtle stickers kind of rounded up, and so that you could see them from the side of the mold too. Like that's kind of what I wanted. So it's like looking into like a fishbowl almost. And I thought that that would be a good idea to do with the paper, only I didn't think this thing through the whole way. So now I have all this excess paper, and here's where I start to realize that I really messed up. Like I really, really messed up, because now I've got to figure out something to do with this paper because it's too much, and the resin, like in part, there's like super, super thin little bits that kind of, when I was pushing everything down and moving it, that kind of went up the side, but it's not covered. Like it's not actually in there the way that it needs to be in there. And I've got like air holes that I can kind of sort of see that I've somehow got to get resin into. But guess what? I can't pour a clear coat back here. I mean, I could, but it needs to be colored. Like, that's just hideously ugly right now. Like, it's awful. It's so awful. So, it's got to be something else. So, my bright idea was, let's get some UV resin and we'll kind of glue down all of these little flappy parts of the paper, right? Which it's not a horrible idea. The execution was terrible, and the fact that my paper isn't flat is a whole other problem, because remember all that resin I heated up? So when I put the paper on there, now I've got kind of bumps and curves and stuff, and I need to kind of make this seamless, and that's not going to happen because I got bumps and curves and stuff. And then here's the part where I really realized that I have a serious problem. And it's because of the way that the turtle sticker is shooting up the side. There's no resin in there. Like I can see that there's no resin down there. And then I've got the paper on top of it, with that layer, that little bit of resin in between. But I need to get into the side of the mold here, and I need to somehow get resin in there. And it's got to be clear resin. So I've got to use UV resin. Like that's it, and hope for the best, and hope that I can get it in there, and not only just get it in there, but get it in there and actually have it cure with all this crap that I've already put down on here. So yeah, a lot of bad decisions were made in the making of this video. um but we're just gonna keep going on, and I'm trying to get a toothpick to try. I can see the air bubble in there. I can see it, but I can't tell where else there's air at. And as I'm putting the resin in to fill up that air bubble, it's like it's not going anywhere. It's like leaking out somewhere, and I can't figure out where it's going. So that means I've got to have some other kind of air bubble in there. So I don't know. I did it. I let it cure for 5 minutes. Now all I can do is cross my fingers and hope for the best. So now it's time to do the last layer of this and hope to God that it doesn't come out completely, completely horrible. But we'll find out. So for this, I decided that I'm going to go 3 different color blues. I'm doing a darker, kind of a medium, and then a light blue. And I'm going to use Rolio's Azure, yeah, Azure and Maya Blue, and then I am going to use Let's Resin's dark blue. And we're just going to kind of mix it up. I'm going to pour the medium blue in first, and then we're just going to go in with the other 2 colors. Why? I don't know. I thought maybe just in case you can see it through the front because God knows I don't know. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see in the side, but at least maybe hey, maybe the back will be pretty, right? Maybe. That's all I can hope for at this point, honestly. So we're just gonna mix up these colors and start throwing them in there. Now, it does take me a while because after I get this first color poured in here, I do take my dotting tool and I really, really try to work the resin down into those problem areas that I know that I have. And I'm hoping that two things. A, that I can get resin in there, but B, that as I put the resin in there, it's not going to leak into the areas that I don't want it to. I know when I was shoving all that UV resin down into that little hole that I broke the seal. I know I did. I had to because that was the only way I could actually get a substantial amount of UV resin into the hole to hopefully maybe possibly fix the issue. I don't know. So now we're just gonna kind of throw the colors in here and swirl them up a little bit and just kind of let it do its thing. I mean, honestly, the only thing that really matters about the back is that it's completely opaque so you don't see the ugliness of all of that paper and stuff going on underneath. That's really it. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's the back of the clock. I could have probably got away with anything. And I'm hoping that I at least have the paper that is going to cover most of it. Okay, moment of truth. 24 hours later, here we are. Let's see how bad this is going to look. And I'm really, uh, I'm, I'm really concerned, especially the side where I know I have super duper issues. Like, I don't know. And then I'm hoping that all that UV resin that I put down before is completely cured too. I mean, as it stands right now, I'm not seeing anything on the mold, so that's a good sign. But let's see if I've got any big chunks and air pockets and stuff like that. Okay. All right. So the top, you can see that line where the paper connects and it's uneven. The bottom is super gorgeous. I do like the turtles. I like the iridescence of the paper around there, but this is not okay. Like you can clearly see on the in between, like from the backing and from where I put that paper layer and that back color, like you can see the unevenness of it. Now, I knew I would have a line like I knew there would be a line, right, between the paper and that you'd probably see the paper a little bit. If I had been able to make it work and do it flat, I don't think it would have been as bad. It would have been very minimal. But because of the fact that it was so wonky, the way that my resin cured is wonky. So now let's see if we can fix this. And in order to fix it first, I do have one pretty big air hole right here that I need to fill. So we're going to fill that with some more ISTOYO resin, and I'm going to do it in two layers. Put a little bit down, fill it about halfway, cure it, fill it up the rest of the way, make it flush, cure it. Okay, so I need to hide this atrocity on the top. And I went through a few different things. I was going to try rhinestones. I just didn't feel like they fit. So I'm going to take some of these green abalone shells and I think they'll kind of float a little bit better. The color is closer to what I've got going on than any of the rhinestones, and it kind of goes with the whole kind of piece, you know what I mean? So we're gonna do that. Now, my initial thought process was I'm gonna do it so, like, if I put the face of the clock in from where the 11 o'clock would be to the 1 o'clock, and I'm just gonna put the shells there because I don't need the whole thing covered. I just need to hide that seam line. After I did it, however, it just looked a little off. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to take it all the way to the edge of where that little part of the clock kind of fans out onto the side on both sides. And then it'll kind of, do a semicircle around the face of the clock. It won't stop so abruptly, I guess. And it will hide it. but the aesthetic of it will be a cohesiveness as opposed to just one little area where you're like, why are you just putting it right here? So maybe visually you won't notice the fact that there's a seam there. That's what I'm hoping for. So I just put a little bit of UV resin down, put my abalone shells down, took a little bit more on top and just a very little amount just to make sure that all the pieces were touching, and then cure it. And then I'm just kind of spot curing it now. I'll cure it under my light for a good 5 minutes after everything's said and done. But I just kind of want it to not move now and to make sure that everything looks okay. As okay as what we can get with this. So I do have it propped up because I don't want that resin to run anywhere. I kind of want it to sit up against that kind of lip that's on the other side so that it doesn't go over. And that's it for this part. Now there is a matter of the seam lines between the two blues. So for that, again, I had thought about rhinestones, didn't think they fit. So I thought, what if maybe we just go with a couple shells going along there? I mean, it's not the worst idea I've had this entire video. I'm sure there's probably something else I could have done, but at the time, like this was really all that I kind of thought of. So I just kind of took three shells, figured it out to where you can't really necessarily see them or the line, that seam line. And we're just going to take some E6000 glue and glue those babies on and kind of let it be. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Now, do need to make sure that the shells are as straight and even as possible so that they're not kind of wonky and, off-centered. I'm not trying to make it look more hideous. It doesn't look hideous, but I'm not trying to make it look more of anything. I'm trying to fix it. So we're just gonna kind of go with this. Now I'm gonna give this a little bit, let this dry, and then we're gonna continue on because the top of this piece I'm not happy with at all. Don't like how you can see the wonkiness, so I feel like I'm gonna cover it. So my thought is I just need to really hide the ugliness. I don't want to cover the whole thing. I want it to still look like an ocean. Like I don't want to hide every aspect of it. And I think the parts that work look really nice. So I decided that I kind of took a piece of tape so that my line would be, as straight as possible and measured it out. And then I'm just going to kind of go along with my Deco Color silver paint pen, just kind of go along that line. And it's on the back of the clock, so it's not going to really affect the front, but it's going to hide the majority of the ugliness where those seams are. But I'm not going to just stop there. I am going to take it around both sides of the clock because I do have the same issue. Now, this side was a little bit more difficult, and it's because that's where the hole was. And then there's just a weird wonkiness of the way the sticker kind of is on that one little part. So, where it covers it, yes, but you can still see like some bumps. Like it's not 100% smooth, which if I hadn't covered it with the paint pen, like you may not have been able to tell, but there's still like the ugliness of me not making sure that paper layer was completely flat when I put it on. So in the end, like it's the back side of the clock. So can you really tell? Only if you're really really looking for it. Like other than that, it's not too horrible. Now, it did take me a little while to try and get a straight line cuz I suck at that, but I think I got it pretty good. I just wanted to make sure that it was the same kind of width all the way around, at least as much as possible. And then we're kind of going to like after that it's mainly done. Now there is one other thing that I want to do before I finish with this, and that is at the top, I just want to add a little something. So I want to bring out some of the definition that you get from like the actual clock mold itself, where it kind of goes in and out and whatever. So I took the white acrylic marker that Let's Resin had recently sent me, and I'm just going to kind of go over two of the lines, and I feel like it kind of ties in a little bit with the ocean waves that are there a little bit more, and just kind of adds just a little bit more to it than just the plain face. But that's pretty much it. All in all, like, it's not bad. Did it have its hiccups and its problems? Absolutely. But I think in the end I was able to save it. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But as I kind of finish this up, that's pretty much a wrap on this one, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will catch you guys on Saturday in the next one. Love ya.